Welcome back. Our top story this half an hour. Chinese negotiators are back in Washington at the negotiating table for another round of trade deliberations. I spoke with Vice President Mike Pence about what's driving the president to get this deal done and done right.
President Trump's approach, first and foremost, is about defending the American economy. And the truth is, with a $500 billion trade deficit, that's about 50% of our overall international trade deficit, Maria, as you know. Yeah. And with intellectual property theft, forced technology transfers, for too long, China has taken advantage of the American economy. And those days are over under President Trump.
I want to switch gears and ask you about Brett Kavanaugh, but one last question here. So this upcoming week, we'll get ministers here. Are you expecting the Chinese to explain what needs to be done in order to do a deal, since they're the ones who reneged? I mean, what should we expect from these ministers this upcoming week?
Well, look, I think what is happening today is dialogue, and that'll take place in the weeks that are ahead. And when the principals meet next month, it will continue as well. But I think President Trump has made his position very clear that it's not just about opening the markets. It's also about dealing with what we call structural issues that really wage war on American private property and jobs in a very real way. We've got to correct the intellectual property theft. We've got to end forced technology transfer. Those issues have to be addressed. But look, the atmosphere, as I talk to our team, the atmosphere is getting better. China recently lifted tariffs on American pork.
They need to do it. They've got 250 million diseased pigs in China. They need our pork, right?
But we took that as a positive sign of them opening their markets to agricultural goods. There are plans for them to begin buying more agricultural products from the United States, and the president recently delayed our next round of tariff increases in recognition of their 70th anniversary celebration. So the atmospherics are improving, but I can tell you, and I can tell the American people, President Trump is going to stand firm in our negotiations with China and demand that China open their markets, or we'll continue down the path and the road that we're on, and that is, frankly, using access to the most prosperous economy in the history of the world as a lever to move China and other countries forward.
Let me switch gears. Pardon me.
Yeah, please.
Once again, Justice Brett Kavanaugh's character is being debated, despite the fact that the New York Times left out a critical point in terms of their reporting. What is your reaction to what has taken place?
Well, the New York Times should be ashamed to publish a story smearing Justice Brett Kavanaugh and omit the fact that the alleged victim has no recollection of the incident is outrageous. In fact, I heard that their news department wouldn't even publish it in the news section. They actually published the story in their opinion section. But that was a utterly unacceptable act by the New York Times, and they're right to be held accountable publicly for it. But
should people be fired? I mean,
look, the president has said that, and I agree with him. I think anyone responsible for leaving out that kind of a material fact, that the individual that others, on the basis of hearsay, the individual to whom this supposedly happened has no recollection of it happening, to leave that out of a story about a sitting justice of the Supreme Court of the United States it's an act of journalistic malpractice. But what's worse is to see leading Democrats for president, Democrats running for president, actually advocating the impeachment of Justice Brett Kavanaugh over these discredited allegations. This is I mean, what Democrat candidates for president are doing is a disgrace, and it's nothing short of an attack on our independent judiciary. You know, one of the things that makes America truly special is the three branches of government. We just celebrated Constitution Day, the 232nd anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. An independent judiciary is a bulwark of the rule of law in this country, and yet you have You have Democrats who are seeking the highest office in the land, who are taking discredited allegations and using that to call for the impeachment of a sitting member of the Supreme Court. I mean, it is, by the media and by Democrats, it is an act of desperation. And I believe it's an attempt to intimidate Justice Kavanaugh during his tenure on the court. But it won't work. I mean, the American people know the truth of it. Justice Brett Kavanaugh is a good and decent man. His service is a credit to the highest court in the land, and President Trump and I are going to stand with him.
They want to impeach President Trump as well.
All right.
You've got Jerry Nadler pursuing that right now. How are you going to get anything done when you've got the other side constantly trying to take down the president? And do you hear any plans from any of the Democratic candidates that make sense to you that you could say, well, we could work with that, and maybe we can build on that?
Well, look, we're working in good faith on passing the USMCA, and we're going to continue to work with Speaker Pelosi on that. But I heard accounts today that she was as frustrated with the circus of that hearing that took place this week as anybody else. I mean, to have a former campaign manager for the president come in and berate him after Robert Mueller already presented his report. The Justice Department concluded no collusion, no obstruction. Case closed.
This is after 2 years that the public...
2 years, hundreds of interviews, full cooperation, hundreds of thousands of documents our administration provided. And the conclusion by the Justice Department was clear. And yet Democrats are continuing to almost mindlessly drag this matter on, and the American people aren't having it.
Yeah, but Mr. Vice President,
I think it's one of the reasons, Maria, why we're not only going to reelect President Donald Trump for 4 more years next year, but I believe we're going to elect a Republican majority back to the House of Representatives and reelect the majority in the United States Senate. Because when you look at the first 2 years of this administration with Republican majorities on Capitol Hill and how we were able to revive the economy, rebuild our military, and with a strong majority in the Senate to this day, we've seen 150 conservatives confirmed to our federal courts at every level, including 2 justices of the Supreme Court of the United States. All of what we were able to accomplish for the American people and America's standing in the world. Contrast that with the tenure of Democrats during the time of their majority in the House of Representatives. It's just one, one hearing after another, one accusation, one attack of this president after another. And I think the American people have had enough. Everywhere I travel across this country, I hear enthusiasm for the progress that we've made, strong support for President Trump. And I can't wait to get out there to campaign with this president for our reelection, but also to campaign for all these great men and women running to renew Republican majorities in the Congress.
So what do you make of these new Fox News polls that shows the president losing to certainly the top candidates, the hopefuls, Bernie Sanders? You've got him losing to Biden and even Elizabeth Warren.
Well, the only response I have, Maria, is that all the polls were wrong in 2016. And there's only one poll that matters. And I have the same feeling. In fact, the president and I often talk about the fact that as we travel around the country, and you saw it in New Mexico this week again, and I've seen it at the rallies I've been with the president, I think there's more enthusiasm today for what the President Trump has been able to do for the American people than there was even when people were rallying around him as a candidate with promises of what he would do. I hear it all the time. The American people see we're standing tall in the world again. We're standing with our allies. We're standing up to our enemies. We've rebuilt our military. We're giving our military and their families the support, the resources they need to accomplish their mission, defend our country. This economy is soaring. 6 million new jobs.
But it has to continue to soar,
unemployment at a 50-year low.
And we are seeing a slowdown.
Conservatives on our courts. The American people know that's all been a result of a president who's labored and worked to keep his promises. And I really do believe, whatever the polls show, that come Election Day 2020, we're going to get 4 more years of President Donald Trump, and we're going to work our hearts out to make sure that we got a lot of supporters on Capitol Hill and in state houses around the country.
This is my final question. I know we have to jump. People are worried about Iran. Is the U.S. going to respond to Iran attacking the Saudi oil fields?
Maria, at the president's direction, we are right now evaluating the evidence associated with the attack of this last Saturday on Saudi Arabian oil facilities. It was the largest attack on global oil infrastructure in history. Secretary of State arrived this week. He's consulting with Saudi Arabian officials. We've had investigators on the ground working closely. The president has directed the team to get the facts. I mean, this clearly the Saudis have confirmed that the missiles and drones that were used here were Iranian missiles and drones. But what we're seeking to identify is where were they fired from. The Houthis have taken credit far to the south in Yemen. There's some evidence to the contrary of that. The president has directed the team to get to the bottom of it. He's already ordered in the days ahead that we're going to be imposing new punishing sanctions on Iran for a whole range of activities it's continued to conduct across the region. Whatever action the United States takes will be a decision for the President of the United States. But I can promise you, I think there's two things you can observe here. First, our maximum pressure campaign is working. The Iranian economy is literally collapsing.
But how was this not seen?
And the activities in the region regarding oil tankers, their support for Houthis, their continued support for terrorism are all evidence of increasing desperation by the Iranians. And while the president said it's likely this attack actually originated in Iran, we're going to get to the facts. And whatever action that President Trump determines is proper, the American people can be confident that we're going to defend our interests, we're going to defend our troops, and we're going to defend our allies in the region.
Vice President Pence, thank you.
Thank you, Maria.